So I'm Ari Schwartz. I am the coordinator of the Cybersecurity Coalition. And this session is talking about the roadmap that's in front of you on that we put out today for this conference, and that we've been talking about with policymakers at the commission all this week. And really, I want to give a little bit of background on the coalition because a lot of people have been asking me about it, so I'll start there. And then Ricardo is the chair of a EU working group, so he's going to give kind of the overview of why we did the paper, and then we'll kind of talk back and forth about what's in the paper. So the coalition really came about because I was having a lot of conversations when I came out of government with folks in the security community, both CISOs and security vendors. And the vendors in particular felt as though their issues when in the trade associations were always very low down on the list of what the trade associations did when they were talking about security. And the security was always issue number 10 on a list of 12 things to do. And sometimes literally number 10 on a list of 12 things to do. It didn't just feel like it. We worked with the other trade associations in order to build this in a way where we can talk about security issues before they become big issues, or we try to at least. Sometimes we succeed better than others. We were very successful about that. We were working around we were always meant to be international. We were working around the world, but we realized as more of the regulatory effort and spotlight moved to the EU, that we needed to organize the EU work that we were doing better. And we put together this EU working group, which Ricardo led. And at first it was just going to be to track what's going on and to give information about what else is going on around the world. And then eventually it has grown into exactly what we always wanted it to be, which is a group that can really discuss policy, work on policy, put out the kind of paper that you see in front of you, and talk about the kind of issues that we're having today, and help to hold, along with the Cyber Threat Alliance, help to hold CyberNext Brussels. And so even having this conference is a real culmination of the fact that we are where we want to be. So I'll turn it over to you, and you can talk about where we are now.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Ari, and good afternoon, everyone. I'm Riccardo Masucci. I work with Intel as Director of Security and Technology Policy, and I'm here because I have the privilege and the pleasure to help coordinating the work of this organization in Brussels, with many colleagues that are in the room, very active from many member companies. I supported from the very beginning the idea of this manifesto, if we want to call it this way, or a roadmap, since the coalition has been active for the past 5 years in Brussels on a number of policy issues. We've been trying to influence positively the discussions, the policy debate on cybersecurity. And now, since hopefully we have also established the Cyber Coalition as a voice for the cybersecurity industry here in Brussels, we thought instead of reacting to legislation and initiatives by policymakers here in Brussels, it's time for us also to show where we think cybersecurity policy should go in the years to come. And so here's why we have a policy roadmap for the next 5 years. There's a fantastic opportunity. There's a new European policy cycle as of 2024. Today, the keynotes that we heard earlier this morning just confirmed that our choice is right, because cybersecurity is going to stay at the very top of the political agenda for the years to come. It's not only because of the wars that we have at our doorstep, but it's also because cybersecurity is becoming more and more horizontal in a number of issues, emerging technologies. But also this year, 2024, is a year where around the world millions of people will be called for elections, right? So we will participate in democratic processes, and cybersecurity will be really critical also for the EU and other countries around the world to be able to express this democratic processes. So you can probably see on the screens, but at page 4 of the paper, you will have a better reading of our proposals. We thought of structuring these recommendations around 3 pillars. One, we think that we need to strengthen the European cyber ecosystem. The second one is that we need to insist on international partnerships and interoperability. And the third one is we think that we really need to adopt a future-focused approach to policy making.
Yeah, I'll just add here that, you know, one of the things, we had heard this message pretty loud and clear that you heard you heard this morning from both Despina and from everyone that works at the commission, at least, that they don't want to regulate it. They're on the implementation. They're not regulating. We tried to tie in a lot of the things from this roadmap to implementation. Now, someone from one of the countries said, like you to us yesterday, I won't call out who it was, but it was a good line, that, you know, they can talk about implementing all they want, but really the tool of the EU is regulation. So they will come back to regulation. And we know that, and some of these things are areas where we do expect regulation down the road as well. That's one of the reasons we call it a roadmap, is because I think the idea is these are things that they should be focused on now, should be working on now, and eventually probably will lead to regulation. Not all of them, but some of them. So,
excellent point. Another thing that we heard loud and clear this morning is the need for joining forces, public and private sector, and the first bucket of recommendations that we have starts indeed with you know, stronger public and public-private partnerships, not only to prevent cyber threats, but also to build the readiness across the European ecosystem. We follow with a specific recommendation on developing the cyber workforce and ensuring mobility of this cyber workforce within the European Union and from outside of the European Union in the European Union. So building a talent pipeline, it's critical going forward. This translates to not only curricular partnership, internships for professionals and those that are going to develop cybersecurity tools and solutions, but we need to look also at the broader workforce that will need to be not only aware, but will probably need to use cybersecurity tools. So there's a need for upskilling and reskilling workers to also potentially direct this workforce towards the cybersecurity sector. For doing this, it's important also to attract more investments in Europe, and this is the third of our recommendations. This includes incentives for R&D in cybersecurity, but also a favorable regulatory environment for companies to invest in Europe, and this applies to European companies and hopefully also to non-European companies. This afternoon, we are going to hear more about our fourth recommendation, which is reduce footprint of unsupported devices. So I won't elaborate more on this because we have a panel dedicated. And I think we can transition, Ari, to the second pillar of our recommendations, which is the one on international partnerships and interoperability. That was another of the messages that I heard a lot this morning.
We heard some of that. Yeah, we heard some of that on that second panel, but we also heard some of these pieces from other places. So information sharing and with partners in international and looking at cyber threats in an international direction and increasing information, finding ways to improve and increase information sharing remains a high priority for us. The second one, I think, Despina really had a good line about the history of cybersecurity and how it all ties, a lot of it does tie into interoperability and standards and as solutions. I always say, the way that cybersecurity controls get built is that we have an incident and something comes up, and then we build mitigations for it, and those become standards, and then people use them and expect people to, as they become kind of written in stone, that this is the way to protect against the thing that you were working on. And I think that's what she was trying to get at as well, is that standards are the basis for cybersecurity, and then therefore they become so important into this discussion. And that's what we're getting at there as well, is as we start to come up with means of doing this, we have to figure out which standards we're going to use and promote them and work with them across the board. Why don't you talk about trade and?
Sure. The trade, despite the fact that in the last few years it has become such a geopolitical issue that it's really difficult to advance on trade discussions, but we are still supporting, advocating for more ambitious approaches in free trade agreements, trying to incorporate not just a digital chapter, but specific recommendations on cybersecurity that would include commitments to mutual support, risk management, international standards, the development of mutual recognition agreements. And always, and also in the context of trade, it's worth mentioning the other recommendation that we made regarding export control, especially dual-use products, where we hope that the European Union will take the opportunity of using this economic security strategy as a great opportunity for developing a coordinated approach across member states that is currently missing. And in cybersecurity, this is of utmost importance, together with creating more opportunities for senior officials to talk about, more coordination, Europe and the rest of the world, like-minded countries. And so we look with a lot of interest to what is done within the Tech and Trade Council, so EU and US dialogue. The EU-US cyber dialogue, and more broadly, the Tech and Trade Council between EU and the US.
Also point out, there's a lot of discussion right now about spyware and one person's use of technology, protection technologies, another person's spyware. And on the other hand, one person's spyware is also a researcher's tool to use as well. And so it's a very fine line there. It's something that we have commented on in the past, but haven't made as much of a priority now that it has really gotten the spotlight more so, and it's starting to move up. It's something that is going to become more of a priority for us in talking about some of these issues going forward. And then we're going to move into the third pillar, and that's what we call adopt, and that's the other two sessions of the day that we're going to be talking about are in this piece. But the first one that we have there is AI, and we actually did a session. The first session we did in Europe was in January 2020. Not great timing for ongoing sustained engagement. But in January 2020, we held a workshop on AI, and it was kind of both sides of that. AI for cybersecurity, kind of what Florian was talking about earlier, using AI to protect and for security purposes. And then the other side of it as well, how to do security in AI. And I think we remain focused on both of those sets of issues. We don't engage in the kind of broader discussion and debates on AI safety, but we do consider ourselves to have the experts on AI and cybersecurity, and we're going to continue to speak up on that issue. The next one is a panel I'm going to do, the second panel of the afternoon here, on post-quantum cryptography, which is becoming a rising issue, and we'll talk more about that. And then we'll talk about also after the next panel after us is the one on vulnerability disclosure and government's use of vulnerabilities and building processes around that. The vulnerabilities equities process, government disclosure decision processes are two different names for the same thing. And then The last one is about educating and building the cybersecurity workforce of the future, and that's more about the education of the public education for younger students, primary school students, et cetera. So anything else that I left out there?
I don't know if there are any immediate reactions. This is the official launch of our EU policy roadmap to 2024-2029. So I don't know if there are immediate reactions from the audience, or if there's just a agreement.
Canned questions, yeah. Many people in this room helped to write it, so there should be a pretty relatively strong support. But it is, we do hope that it can be something that we can look back on and say, you know, at this time we did put this forward for the next 5 years, and we will be, you know, coming back to it as we do more of these kind of events, but also in our regular engagement on a kind of regular basis. So that's it. Thanks. We'll pass things on to Jen Ellis, who I think still might be outside there because I saw her go out with the panel. Oh, there they are. We paged them and they came back in.